Are you tired of not having enough listings? Our market is so short of supply and inventory that those agents that have listings are winning. Those that don't are struggling. Here's what I want you to know is that this episode with Kevin Owens, top 1% realtor out of Phoenix, Arizona, is going to give you what you need to start to get lots of listings from an area that you specify, a geographic farm. You're going to love it. I can't wait for you to hear it. Please share it with a friend and know that he is going to be sharing inside of the Think Bigger Real Estate group some marketing pieces that he says make his phone ring. So be sure, and if you're not already a member of the Think Bigger Real Estate group, go sign up so you don't miss out. Enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Thrilled today to help you solve the problem of why you don't have as many listings as you want to have. I have with me an absolute national expert when it comes to this very topic of how to get listings from a geographical farm. I have a story I'm going to share with you here in just a minute. But please, before I get too deep into this, let me welcome and thank today Kevin Owens, realtor out of Phoenix, Arizona, for joining us on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show.
Hi there, Justin. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. I've been following you on Instagram. By the way, to all that are listening, if you're not following Kevin on Instagram, you're doing yourself a disservice. At Kevin Owens, realtor on Instagram. He's a top, in fact, you are a top 1% agent out of Phoenix, Arizona. Lived there your whole life. Born and raised in that beautiful part of the world. Kevin, tell us what got you into real estate? What caused you to choose this amazing industry as your profession?
So I actually never planned on going into real estate. My family has been either everyone's a teacher or in real estate. So my dad is a land developer and builder. He was in the Valley for 30 some years. So he always, kind of coached me growing up to go to real estate school. And it was one of those things that I just did, for the sake of going. The first time I went, I hated it. It was awful. I was just miserable, and I just wasn't into it. So I went back a second time. The second time I went back, I absolutely fell in love with it, and I started thinking that this might be something I wanted to do for a career. So that's kind of how it took off. It was purely accidental, but yeah, I was in my early 20s, didn't really know what else I wanted to do with my life. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
I love it, man. It's so typical of many real estate agent stories who are absolutely killing it, have an amazing life, amazing impact. They're like, I didn't set out to be this, right? It's kind of by default. And it's so fun to see how now there's probably nothing else in the world that you'd rather do, right? Is to go out and absolutely help people's dreams come true, help them with their real estate transactions, and creating a wonderful life for yourself in the process.
Definitely.
I want to kind of jump into a little bit more of your story. Not just getting into real estate, but now kind of what you've done with it. And I think that's really the gem that we want to uncover today, is that we have a lot of agents out there that are realizing it's really hard to work just with buyers right now, right? There's multiple offer situations. Inventory is at an all-time low. Demand is at an all-time high. Rates are at an all-time low, driving that demand. People that can consistently get listings are having a great business right now. Those that are not are really getting frustrated. And I know you've really uncovered something. You've done kind of really focused your efforts on geographic farming. Let me share with you quickly this story. I live in a subdivision that's at the edge of kind of the country. And this area where I live used to be farmers' fields. And in fact, the family that owns it, Tofty, they shared this story that we loved farming, but the most valuable crop we ever produced were houses. And so kind of tying into this geographical farming, right? For those that are maybe watching and outside the real estate industry, you're like, are you really talking about agriculture? No, we're talking about going out and cultivating relationships with people in a geographic area to create a relationship to where at some point they choose you to help them solve their real estate needs. Now, Kevin, you've done this at a really high level. Again, you're a top 1% agent out of the Phoenix, Arizona market. You sold, is it true, like 90 homes from your geographic farm? Is that right? Did I read that right?
60 in my geographic farm since 2012.
Okay, impressive. From a geographic farm. I don't know who on this broadcast would not love to say, to lay claim to that accomplishment, right? To be able to say 60 homes from my geographic farm. Talk to us a little bit about even what price range. Maybe that will help people see kind of where you're working.
So my farm, I kind of consider my bread and butter. Most of the homes in my original farm range. I mean, the nice thing is I've got a kind of broad mix of product. I've got smaller townhomes that are selling in the 400s, up to the larger homes are selling in the 900s, just under $1 million. So I do have a wide range within my farm, which I think is really helpful, because when we see different segments of the market change, when luxury may be a little bit slower, then the lower priced homes are going to be selling in my farm. So on average, the average list price of the listings that I've taken in my farm is around 550, which is, I think, kind of a sweet spot in the market. It ends up being 33 million, I think, in volume since 2012, just in my main farm. And I started off with one farm, and I kind of expanded out from there, kind of on topic for this podcast, thinking bigger and growing. So I started off with my original farm. That one has about 900 homes in it. And now I've grown my farm to just about 3,000 homes.
Wow. Okay. So that's a big farm. That's bigger than what I oftentimes hear, which may be a secret. Again, what I want to accomplish today in this is really uncovering the secrets that maybe a lot of people don't understand and don't know they're doing it wrong, right? Let me ask this question. How did you choose the farm that's now yours? Like what caused you to say, that's where I'm planting my flag, that's where I'm going to be? People are going to know Kevin Owens Realtor right here.
So that was also purely accidental, coincidental, whatever you want to call it. I had a home that I represented the buyer on in a newer community. When I first started farming it, the builder was still selling in the community, so the resales were obviously competing against the new sales. So in 2011, the community started in 2008. In 2011, I had the opportunity for a buyer that I represented in the community to sell their listing. So I represented them as a buyer when they bought it from the builder. Now it was time to sell it. In 2011, the market was a little tough, and I sold it in just a couple of days. And the neighbors started calling me up and asking me to work with them. And it was kind of one of those things where I never really planned on farming it, but more and more neighbors started calling me. And there's actually a street in my farm where I've literally sold every other house going down the street. So, it was just neighbors calling me because they saw my sign go up. They saw it sold quickly. And then I kind of just capitalized on that and started farming it, because I was like, maybe there's something to this if everybody's calling me. And that's how kind of my original farm started.
Now, Kevin, is there something that you did during the client experience, or something that you did with regards to the way you did open houses, to the way you dealt with your clients, where you might create that kind of energy to where you get people actually saying, hey, I see you sold my neighbor's home, I'd like to talk with you? Other than just the normal sign in the yard, did a good job, sold quickly, is there anything else that maybe you would share with us that maybe is a key to have people speak up and share your name?
So I'm passionate about marketing. That's I'm more of a listing agent because I like the marketing side of it. So I've always been very I guess I've had my hand in all the marketing that's going out that has my name on it. I'm very high touch with my marketing. So I literally help design every single piece of marketing that goes out. And that was kind of one of the things I struggled with originally was my business coach was saying, Kevin, give that to somebody else, someone else can take care of that and that kind of thing. And that was one of the things that I struggled with her on, because that was the reason people were calling me, was when they got my marketing pieces in the mail, they knew it was me without even looking at the name on the postcard. And people still say that to me to this day. They say, we can always tell when it's your listing on a flyer in our mailbox versus another agent, solely from the pictures and everything else. So I, outside of my farming area, I also specialize in luxury. And I guess my concept as far as from a marketing perspective is I treat all my listings the same way. They all, in 2011, not everybody was doing professional photos. A lot of agents were still using their cell phone to take pictures, that kind of thing. So I was using a professional photographer for everything, making sure the shots look really good, and just having really good hero images on all the marketing going out. And that's kind of how people started recognizing me. And now it's like, anytime I'm in my farm, people are like, "You're the realtor, right?" And like, "Yep, that's me. I'm in your mailbox all the time."
So I love that concept, Kevin, is that there's certain things that we should delegate, right? There's
Mhm.
certain things we should not. And I think whatever, and that might be different for different people, depending upon where their area of brilliance is at. My guess is that if your area of brilliance is paperwork, I don't know that you should still not delegate that. Like you should delegate that, right? But if it's
Yeah.
customer facing, if it's causing you to get more listings, for heaven's sake, don't delegate that, right? And I think you've identified the fact that a lot of real estate agents, when they market houses, and it's very inanimate objects, and it's not so much very entertaining. It doesn't grab a lot of attention. It's kind of more of a looks like an armless stat sheet, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to really being something that comes alive, that grabs people. Watching your Instagram, I know you're a fabulous marketer. Again, I would encourage anybody that's listening to this that marketing is really one of the things that's setting people apart and causing people like yourself, Kevin, to really create a wow factor and something that causes people to remember you when it comes to Geographic Farm. So awesome job. Okay, so let's keep going. That's how this started to happen. Talk to us what it looks like now. Now that your farm has matured a little bit more, right? And it wasn't this like, hey, people are calling me, maybe I should do this. What was the next step for you once you realized like, hey, I think I want to invest in this community. I think I want to be the mayor of this area here and really show up in people's mailboxes. What other components of your geographical farm would you say really set you apart, really cause you to kind of gain dominance in that particular area?
One of the things I think is consistency, and any real estate coach will tell you if you're going to farm, you need to be consistent, and you need to think about it in a long-term perspective. And that was something that when I first started, when I decided to do this, I, budgeted, allocated funds for my farm, and I basically had the thought in my mind that if I didn't get anything for a year, that was kind of the expectation.
Okay.
And so I didn't really expect to get any business off of it for at least the first year. I knew that this was part of my long-term strategy and that this was something, it's not going to be a silver bullet unless you happen to be really lucky and get a phone call the first postcard you send out. But, for me, it was really a long-term strategy and making sure that I knew in my mind it was a long-term strategy, because I think a lot of agents like the idea of a farm, but they give up after 3 months when they've sent something out monthly and they haven't gotten any kind of return on it. And farming is really for the long-term gain. It's not necessarily for short-term. I mean, there's obviously other lead generation strategies you can use for short-term gain, but I really viewed it as a long-term strategy to get my foothold and kind of dominate that part of the market. And that I think really kind of paid off for me. And once my main farm, once I became kind of the number one agent at my main farm, I started looking at neighboring communities and figuring out, there's a lot of kind of cross traffic within the communities, the surrounding neighborhoods. So I thought, maybe I should start marketing in this area and add that to my farm. So I did that, and then I added more and more and more, and that's kind of how the farm expanded. I always tell people, people say, well, when do I know is the right time to expand my farm? And I am one of those people that I rely on my gut feeling for things like that. I think if you're questioning whether or not it's time to, grow your farm, it's probably time to grow. But if you have like that gut feeling in the bottom of your stomach that's just like, oh, I don't know if I, can either handle more business, or I don't have the budget for the additional marketing, or I can't do it right, then it's probably not the right time to add it. So I always tell people, listen to your gut feeling. And, if you feel like it's time to grow, then it's probably time to grow.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. Talk to us a little bit, doing some specifics. You talked about, I budgeted a certain amount of money to my farm. What was that when you were getting started? You mind sharing that?
So when I first started, I was not, I got licensed in 2008. So, we're talking 3 years into my career.
And a tough market nonetheless, right? I mean, that was not like the heyday of real estate.
Exactly. It was like, we were still wrapping up short sales and REOs and all that stuff. So when I first started, I didn't have a budget, like a big budget. I knew I wanted to commit to being consistent. So at that time, I was literally doing double-sided 8.5 by 11 black and white copies at my office and sending it out through EDDM, which is like pretty much the cheapest way you can
get a message,
right? So I would literally go in on the weekends and print off hundreds and hundreds of these, and I would bundle them up myself, take them to the post office and all the little, sections that you need to do for EDDM. I wasn't paying anybody to do that. So at the beginning for me, it was definitely sweat equity versus check equity. I just, didn't have the budget. So once I started getting phone calls though, and for me, at the beginning, I knew I couldn't necessarily send out the 4-page full color newsletter that I wanted to send out every month, right? But I knew I needed to be consistent and I needed to get something out and get my name in front of these people. So the black and white copies worked really well at the beginning. They were super cheap. I was spending just a couple $100s on them, and people were calling me. And so once I started kind of getting that listing inventory from my farm, closing deals, that's when I made the commitment to move forward with like a marketing company, have them handle the actual design of it. Again, I still like give them a mock-up of what I want, but that's when I changed to that. And now I spend about $60,000 a year in print, direct to door kind of mailings, whether that's for my farm or expireds or whatever. So it kind of grew from a couple $100s to 60 grand.
Yeah, 5,000 a month.
What's that?
About 5,000 a month now.
Yeah. So, and obviously I see the return on it, and for me, it's an investment in my business, so it makes sense. And it's obviously a tax write-off and all that fun stuff. So for me, it made sense. And, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people get scared off because they don't have necessarily the budget to send out the marketing that they do. But the thing is if you're consistent and you're sending out something and you're getting in front of people's, face, even if it's just on the way to the, trash as they're throwing away your postcard or whatever, at least you're in front of them and you're getting that 2 seconds of name recognition. And, if they start seeing more and more sales on your black and white, double-sided EDDM, postcard that you're sending out, then your phone will start ringing, and then you can kind of build to, the full color, have someone else do it and all that kind of stuff.
So I was going to ask you on those marketing pieces, the original ones that went out, it just had kind of a list of your listings, or was there something about your bio? And I would even ask you to say, how is that transition now? So maybe 2 questions. What was the original version of that? And what would you say now is the essential component of every piece that goes out that gives you the best results?
Sure. So at the beginning, obviously I didn't have a ton of sales in that neighborhood. So I was using my sales, but I was also just doing kind of a market update of what had recently sold in the neighborhood.
Love it.
And obviously local MLS rules apply, but here we can, post the sales after they've closed if another agent has sold them. The one thing we can't do is obviously use their photos. So I would actually go and take a picture, my own picture of the homes that had sold and put that on my flyer. And I didn't say that I had sold them. I just said, just sold. And obviously it's public record. So I was doing that at the beginning, kind of combining it with my sales. So to, the average consumer, they are seeing, 6 closings on there and they're like, wow, Kevin's rocking it in here. I need to call him, kind of thing. And, everyone just assumed that they were my sales and, it was my business and everything. And I also did, like a market snapshot, gave them the data and that kind of stuff. So that was at the beginning. Obviously I just had 2 pages at that point that I needed to fill with content.
Real quick, Kevin, did you get any pushback from other agents with that strategy? Totally ethical, right? But you get agents saying, hey, wait a minute, you just sold, that was my house. I live in the neighborhood. I sold that. Why are you putting on your flyer? Did you get anybody pushing back on you?
I didn't. So when I started my farm, one of the competing agents, he actually worked for the builder. And so he had a lot of relationships with, the people living in my farm, because he had worked with them on building it. And then he decided to get into resale. So a lot of people already knew him. He was one of 2 sales agents on site. And so they had already, I had like a 50% chance that they knew him, right? And then my other competition, it's a husband-wife team, and they actually live in the community that I farm. I don't farm the community I live in personally, and different people say different things about whether or not you should farm your own community, but I personally don't believe in it. So I think it's best if you're farming another community that you can be, detached and unemotional from price points and that kind of thing. I think when you're living in your own farm, it's tough because people want you to get the highest price. And if you're not getting them the highest price and they're your neighbors, there's also kind of this, built-in animosity. So I was up against that when I was doing this, and I did not get pushback from the other agents. Obviously, like you said, everything I was doing was ethical. I wasn't saying I sold them. I was just saying they just sold, which you can obviously see on Zillow or, any of the websites. So, and I never, if somebody asked me when I was going in for a listing presentation, if they said, oh yeah, you sold, the house down the street, because they assumed that I sold it, I would correct them and say, actually, I didn't sell that house. It was sold by another agent. But I included my marketing, so everyone can see kind of what's selling in the neighborhood. So I wouldn't ever take credit for it, but I think most people assume, when they see it and see your name that you had made the sale.
Talk to us, and I kind of interrupted your flow to the next part, which is, what do you see now that you've really become a master of geographical farming marketing? What is a critical component of every piece of marketing that goes out the door that you say it has to have this, and this gives me great results? Maybe it's, like you said, a hero shot, like it's you, your face, your brand. Maybe it's the wording. How do you construct the wording to be more of a story as opposed to just a MLS stat sheet, right? What input, what insight would you have for us?
So now what we do is every other month we send out a 4-page full color newsletter brochure, and on the front of that we do a cover home. And so it's one of my listings. Once I started getting listings in my farm, I started, when I was sitting down at the listing consultation with sellers, I would say, next month we've got our publication coming out. They knew it because they've been seeing it in their mailbox. And I'd say, we don't have a cover home for it, so you guys would be a great opportunity, to use as a cover home. So we do the cover home on the newsletter, and that once you're in, you have your foot in the door and you're sitting down at the kitchen table with people, that really kind of helps hook them and seal the deal. Because everybody wants to be the cover home, right? They want to be the ones on the front page. So that has worked really well. But obviously you have to have your own, listings and sales to do that. But we kind of, I work with Curator, with Chris and Jimmy. I know they were
those guys. Love those guys.
Ago. And one of the things that, Curator teaches us is to kind of market to people throughout the lifespan of the listing, right? So you've got the coming soon, when it comes on the market, when you start doing open houses, when you start getting offers, and then when it closes. So we use that in our print marketing as well. So, the coming soon, obviously the rules have changed with that a little bit, but we kind of still market throughout the lifespan of the listing. And, if I don't have a cover home for next month, either because it doesn't look great or whatever, we'll use a home that sold the previous month as it just sold and use that as the cover image. So you obviously have to have the right property to make it, look good on the front. But I would say that's the number one thing, is having that cover home, because people recognize, especially when you're in, a development that, is not semi-custom homes or whatever, people are going to recognize the homes and they're going to be like, hey, that's my floor plan, or, whatever. So that kind of draws people in on our marketing. And then obviously we do, just listed, just sold, market data. The inside has, kind of the fluffy stuff. Recipe, all that kind of stuff. My marketing company takes care of that portion. So, but that I would say are kind of, those are the key components for me.
I love it. Talk to us a little bit about door knocking. Is that something that you do? I know some people swear by it. Some people say never in a million years. What about you?
So I don't door knock, and I don't regularly do open houses.
Okay.
I am a listing agent. So for me to do open houses, unless it's in my farm, it's just not part of my business model. And most of the sellers that I work with, when they ask me if I do open houses and I say no, they kind of breathe, and they have a sense of relief, because a lot of them don't want to leave their house for 4 hours, Saturday and Sunday, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. I do do special events. So I'll do like a broker's open, and we'll do like a neighbor's open, especially if the house is vacant. And then the only time I do door knock is I knock the doors around my listing and invite them to the event. And we have a formal invitation and that kind of thing. So that, I think that answers your question. I don't.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cause I know some people say like, that's the fastest way to do a geographical farm, but some people like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to door knock. Right. Or I'm not going to do open houses. Like quality of life is really important to me. And I don't know that it's necessarily in my best interest for finding more listings. Right. So I love the fact that people can find somebody who has really embraced a certain way of geographical farming that's extremely successful, and maybe exclude some of the things that they've said in their mind. Ideally, quality of life and or just the way I like to do business is show up in people's lives. It's not that way, right? It's not through those means, and still be able to have a lot of success with it, right?
And for me, like I would, if I took 4 hours, the 4 hours I would spend doing an open house and applied that to doing my direct mail marketing and making it really, really shine, to me, that's a better payoff because I know my phone will ring for my direct mail marketing. Sitting in an open house, you never know what you're going to get. So for me, it's just, the time commitment. It makes more sense to spend it on my marketing.
That's really interesting right there, is that you're confident enough in your direct mail marketing, right? Which not a lot of people are, that you could say, I could devote 2 hours to this and I know my phone's going to ring, right? That's impressive, Kevin. We would love to see if there's anything that you could share for those that are listening and curious how you can really get in contact and learn from Kevin. The first thing I'm going to say is you need to join the Think Bigger Real Estate group. I'm going to actually ask Kevin a favor of you. If you would send me one of your marketing pieces, one of the things that you send out where you were to say, if I were to send this out, I know my phone would ring, right? Will you do that for us? And I'll put that in a group and people can go get access to that.
Sure. Picking out one is going to be tough, but I probably have like 2 or 3 for you that I can send you.
I won't be upset with that. So again, if you're not yet a member of the Think Bigger Real Estate group, go sign up, join in there. We're going to put some gems for you from Kevin that again, he's confident enough in his time of mastering geographic farming will make your phone ring. Now, keep in mind that his phone's going to ring because he's paid the price in advance, right? It's not just magic. You've got to actually pay the price in that neighborhood, but it's a great start. And I really appreciate you, Kevin, being willing to do that on the spot. Let's talk anything else. What have we missed when it comes to geographic farming? Are there any other things that you say, oh yeah, this needs to be included, or oh yeah, you need to show up this way? I mean, one thing I want to point out, I want everybody to recognize how well dressed this gentleman is, right? When people, and again, that may not be your brand, your style, whatever it is, I'm just saying when you show up for work, that you need to look a certain way, right? And have a certain brand that you carry that is consistent with whatever the consumer expects, the level of home that you're selling, right? I know you're into some luxury property. And so I would just encourage people that the way you show up in the world tells a story before you ever open your mouth, before they ever get any of your marketing, right? I mean, it's who you are. So that's one thing that I just want to point out that you might not say, but it's very obvious from us in the audience saying like, he's a sharp dressed guy. Maybe I need to up my game, right? Maybe not, but maybe. It's just I want to plant the seed that maybe there's something there. So what else, Kevin? What am I missing?
One of the things I noted to myself, when I first started, again, we were doing short sales, all that kind of stuff. And the first managing broker I worked for, she really coached me to fake it until you make it kind of thing. Okay. And she said, you need to dress for the part and you need to dress the way that, for the job you want. So I always, have been kind of a, blazer, dress shirt kind of guy. But one of the things that for me was kind of an aha moment was and this is applying to farming. When you're in your farm area, you need to always be on. And there's a Target right down the street in my farm area that I go to often. Again, I don't live in that neighborhood, but it's a good Target. So I've been to that Target before, and people will come up to me in the store and they're like, hey, I know you from somewhere. And there's been times where I've had like baseball cap, t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops on, and there was kind of an aha moment because people were noticing me in Target. And I kind of learned the hard way that even when I go to Target on my time off, I needed to be in people are used to seeing my marketing, seeing me in a blazer, shirt, and I don't necessarily need to be this dressed up, but at least have a polo on, or whatever. Yeah. So I learned that really quickly with my farm. So if you're active in your farm, if you're hanging out at coffee shops, going to the Target, whatever, I would kind of coach you to always be on and consider that work time, because for me, I wasn't doing that. And then I learned because people kept noticing me. So now I always make sure when I'm in my farm area that, I'm dressed at least in a sensible manner. And then two other things as far as like that I think we need to mention. The first is I had a business coach for a couple of years, and one of my struggles with real estate coaches is they coach people not to farm new communities. And that was really a struggle for me. And yes, short term, a new community, you're not going to get business from it right away, right? If people just moved in the last year, you're probably not going to get business from it. But I kind of view it from the opposite perspective, in that I want to start planting the seeds of my farm from day one. So I recommend to people that you consider new communities and you start getting in front of people in those new communities, so that when it does become time for them to sell, they've seen your face for, however many years it's been. And that was one of the things I really struggled with, because I wanted to grow my farm into the newer stuff. But my coach was saying, oh, people aren't going to be moving for 5 to 7 years in that neighborhood. You're wasting your time and your money. And I kind of did it against, her direction. But the new communities that I started farming, I've gotten business right away from it. One of them, and I'm actually going to the photo shoot this afternoon for it. One of them is a community of 50 luxury homes. They range anywhere from 2 million to 3.5 million, just under 4. And I really liked the community. It's still being built out. They're still building there now. But as part of my marketing plan for this year, I said, I'm going to start farming this neighborhood. I know it may take a couple of years for it to take off, 5 to 7 years on average. But I started farming it in January. And in January, I sent out one postcard to the community. It was a great postcard. Actually, that's probably one of the ones I'll share with you. But that one postcard, the postcard cost me $1 per piece. And I sent them out to 50 homes. And 2 days after I sent it out, I got a listing call. And it was for a $3 million listing.
Jeez.
So I spent $1, well, $50 if you want to count the whole community, to get a $3 million listing. And that sold in February of this year. So I already saw a return from, farming the new community, within a month, 2 months of starting it. And then I just recently got a call a week and a half ago for another listing in there. And we just listed that one. It's going on the market this week for $3.5 million. And I've only been farming that community since January. So in, 6-ish months, I've picked up a $3 million listing and a $3.5 million listing from this new community of 50 homes.
From being Kevin Owens, Realtor, and sending out some postcards and reminding people that you're the man. You do kind of last question before we jump to our signature question of the show. And that last question is, how are you using digital media to help with your geographic farm? Are you doing targeted ads to those communities to where people, you're not just showing up in their mailbox, but also on their devices?
Yes. So I have to credit Curator again for that. So I've got my direct mail marketing I do. Most of my digital stuff is through Curator. And I tie everything together, obviously. So, my website, all that kind of stuff. But, and I do a individual property website for each listing. But it is connected to my website. It's hosted on my website and everything. So we can retarget the people that are coming to view the individual properties. So that has been really helpful, kind of working with Curator to do that. So we do retargeting ads. I do paid Facebook and Instagram promotions for my listings. On average, I usually get between 20 and 30,000 views on my paid promotions for my listings. And again, those are great numbers. When you're in a listing consultation with someone, you're going to tell them that you're putting them in front of 25,000 active buyers. That's kind of a hard thing to say no to. And that's one of the things that I think has kind of differentiated me over my competition. And that's how I did become number one in my farm was, figuring out everything that they were doing and doing the opposite or doing more. And a lot of them were doing the print stuff, but nobody was doing the digital stuff. So when I walked in and, said, I can put your house on, Facebook and Instagram, and we're going to get 20,000 views on it. And I have the data to back it up from my previous listings. That's a really, really strong marketing piece. So now we actually, when we send out just sold postcards now within my farm, we do the, just sold and everything. And then at the bottom, we put the stats. We say, 23,468, views on whatever, how many video views we got and all that kind of stuff. So it all ties together, the digital and the print. And we want to make that connection for people so that they may be getting the print postcard in their mailbox, but they're seeing everything that we're doing digitally as well.
That is brilliant, Kevin, is to take the stats of how that home sold, right? Not just, hey, that it sold, but here's how it sold. These many eyeballs we got on this property, hence it went for top dollar, right? I've had people reach out to me to say, is there really any difference between real estate agents? I said, yeah, there really is that it's supply and demand. And the more demand you get on your property, the higher the price you're going to get. And there's agents out there that put a sign in the yard and wait for it to do its thing. There's other agents that really understand how to get more eyeballs on a property in a shorter period of time, which raises the demand, which raises the price point, right? And
exactly.
I love the fact that you're demonstrating that, like the kind of proof that that's how that property sold. You're demonstrating that through the print media, taking the digital, putting it to print. Absolutely beautiful idea.
It's literally social proof, right? Because
yeah.
You're using social to also give them the proof. So it's literally social proof. And I think even the agents that maybe are doing paid promotions on Instagram and Facebook, they're doing it, but they're not, first of all, they're probably not tracking the results. And second of all, they're not telling people about all of the results that they're getting from that, paid promotion. So for me, it's kind of, if you're spending money on paid promotions, but you're not making that connection for people, you're essentially throwing money away. And I think that that's really what's differentiated me from other people. Even if they're not on Instagram, they at least know what Instagram is. And they see, 23,000 views, on Instagram and Facebook. I better call this guy because he's going to get my house in front of people's eyes.
Quick shout out for Curator. How essential is Curator in teaching you those things and helping you execute on them?
Very essential. They, I think Curator, a lot of people think of Curator as a tech company or, a website company. But the thing that has brought the most value for me is the coaching part of it. I've talked to Jimmy, I've talked to Chris, everyone at Curator. I'm actually going to be hopping on a call in the next couple of days with them for a coaching call. But the nice thing about it is, like, if for instance, I have this big listing coming on this week, and that's what I'm going to be talking to my Curator coach about, is how, because we have really, really limited inventory right now, how we can, kind of boost the kind of introduction to the market through Curator. So I would say it's super essential. It's probably, I was on a waiting list to work with Curator for years. And I wasn't sure if it was ever going to happen. And I'm glad that I waited because it's been a huge change for my business.
That's powerful. Kevin, you've delivered so much value. I know that there are agents right now that are like, dang, I wish we could keep this thing going. Out of the respect to your time, out of respect to the kind of condensed commitment that we have of the length and duration of our episodes, we're gonna stop. But I do want people again to know how to get in contact with you. If I understand correctly, simply instant messaging you through Instagram at Kevin Owens Realtor is the best way to kind of get your attention to say, hey, will you coach me? I know you have some coaching offerings and or just learn from your example, right?
Yeah, Instagram is really the best way to get a hold of me. I'm obviously on Facebook too, but I use, as far as DMs and stuff, that's the best place. I check Instagram most, so.
I love it. So exciting for people that are really saying, I knew that geographic farming was going to be a part of my business. I just feel like I've been doing it wrong. Now they really have someone that they can look to and be mentored by. Appreciate it very much. All right, let's move to the signature question of our show, Kevin. It's one of my favorite parts because it helps me to become even, expand my own possibilities. So as you know, this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. And here we help people to think bigger. Here we help them to expand their possibilities. You've already helped us to do that. Teach us specifically what you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand what's possible for you.
Sure. So one of the things I've always done since even the beginning is I study what other agents are doing in other markets. And if no one's doing it in Arizona, then I bring it to our market. There's some great names out there, and just people that I network with, collaborate with online. Obviously, I have the curator community. I recently joined Ryan Serhant's community. So, there's a bunch of communities and networks you can be a part of. And I think that, the collaboration over competition is really important for me. And that's something that I've really learned in the last year to 2 years, I would say. I used to hold everything really close to my chest and not share it with people. But the thing is, it's like, unless you're in my direct market and wanting to market in my farm, I have no problem sharing my farming strategies with you. And I think there's a lot of agents in our, in our networks that are that way. And I think that it's a really good opportunity for you to learn, especially if you're a new agent. See what other agents are doing that's working for them and apply that to your market. You may not be able to word for word, do whatever they're doing, but I think if we're not willing to look outside of our market at what's working, then you're gonna kind of just sustain or keep doing what you're currently doing. So as far as me with growth, like when I'm traveling and stuff, I go into other real estate offices and I, talk to other agents and I see what's working. And I think that that's really important for me. And there's even been things from other markets that I've taken and literally used the exact same idea in Phoenix because other agents aren't doing that. So
it's powerful. And I love how you said to start that off, you have to be an abundant giver, right? That almost opens you up, as you're saying. Once you remove the cards from your chest and said, hey, what do you want to learn? Here's my secrets. It really starts to open you up for other people to do the same, and you to create some deep collaboration, some deep partners in your market and outside of your market. So that's awesome, Kevin. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a great reminder to all of us of how many people there are out there that can help us if we just open up our mind and start sharing and start asking questions. So thank you, man. It's been such a pleasure. This has been fun getting to know you on a very personal level, getting to hear your story, getting to hear your successes, and have you share that with everybody. I want to thank you for that. I want to share with the audience, again, go follow at Kevin Owens Realtor. This guy's going places. He's doing some great things, somebody that you can learn a lot from. And my additional request are, well, two of them. Number one is go join the group, Think Bigger Real Estate. We're going to be putting in there some digital assets that Kevin's going to send to me. It's going to really help you implement what he's sharing here. And then lastly, my final charge to everybody listening today are 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Thank you so much, Kevin, for helping us do that today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man.